Hey, this is Buck Dharma of Blue Oyster Cult, and you're listening to the Sports Circus.
Welcome to the Sports Circus. I'm your ringmaster, Sal, live from Las Vegas in the AMP TV studio, AAMP Television. Today's show is brought to you by UppercutChops.com. Check out their tasty selection of all-natural, dry-aged USDA prime Wagyu steaks and chops. Wait till you taste their best-in-class New York steaks, the filet mignon, and of course, those massive cowboy cut and tomahawk cut ribeyes. Best I've ever had, probably be the best you ever have as well. Same thing with those gigantic half-pound Wagyu burgers. USDA prime only, folks. Boy, it's good stuff. Check them out at UppercutChops.com. That's UppercutChops.com. Or give them a call, find out what's for dinner. 714-948-0100. 714-948-0100. Again, 714-948-0100 for UppercutChops.com. Yes! And welcome in everybody listening in on our CBS, NBC, and Fox Sports affiliates, all of our independents from coast to coast, as well as everybody watching in select markets on Cox, Comcast, Spectrum, Frontier, Oceanic, Time Warner, Spectrum, and WOW Cable Television affiliates, plus Hotel TV in well over 500,000 rooms from coast to coast. And a big hello to our friends over on Chicago Food Favorites on Facebook. Folks, make sure you check out Chicago Food Favorites on Facebook. All right. Now that we got all that business taken care of, you know, I don't really talk much about the NBA for a lot of reasons, but I love when somebody speaks out and they say, you know what, I don't like when the refs are doing this or doing that. And I'm talking about the players. And, you know, sometimes people complain about that. I remember back in the early 1990s, there was a guy that played for the Lakers, and he seemed to complain about everything, and that was Eldon Campbell. Eldon, he was about a 6'10 power forward, and he came out of Clemson. He was a very good player, but he always complained about everything, it seemed. Anyway, but this guy that I'm going to refer to right here is one of the best players in the NBA today. He's been compared many times in many ways to Michael Jordan. Of course, he's not Michael Jordan. Michael Jordan is Michael Jordan. But this guy's got a very similar skill set, and he is bleeping good. And that's a guy by the name of Anthony Edwards. And so if you don't know who this guy is, you better check him out. If you don't have any of his basketball cards, you better get some of them, because this guy is legit. About same height, same size, similar skill set, and he's very, very good. But how about this? How about Anthony Edwards got fined $75,000 for public criticism of the referees, calling them bleeping terrible. It's F*******, ING, terrible. And good for him for standing up. And I can't play the soundbite because there are some expletives in there that we probably can't play because the FCC would fine us a whole bunch of money. But anyway, as the article reads, Anthony Edwards has given quite a bit of money to the NBA during the final couple of months of the year, but in fines, not donations. So the Minnesota Timberwolves star was fined by the league yet again, this time for $75,000. The penalty, according to NBA head of basketball operations Joe Dumars, was for, quote, public criticism of the officiating and using inappropriate and profane language, close quote. And that boo is actually for Joe Dumars and not for Anthony Edwards. Because, you know, at some point you just get to a point you're like, come on, man. And so here, the following statement released by the NBA, and this was picked up over X. We want to make sure that we credit them as well. And they say, Timberwolves Anthony Edwards fined, New York, December 23, 2024. Minnesota Timberwolves guard Anthony Edwards has been fined for $75,000 for public criticism of the officiating and using inappropriate and profane language, and it was announced today by Joe Dumars, Executive Vice President, Head of Basketball Operations. Edwards' comments came during a post-game media availability following the T-Wolves' 113-103 loss to the Golden State Warriors on December 21 at the Target Center. And of course, Edwards' remarks occurred following that game. and he had said, quote, I can't say the bad words though, by the way, quote, they're effing terrible, all of them besides the woman. But the other two dudes, terrible. Excuses for the reason they call a foul, the reason they don't call a foul. That S asterisk, asterisk, asterisk was terrible. They don't want to talk back to my coach. They don't want to talk back to me. I said one thing to the refs. He gave me a tech. Mother bleep told one of my teammates if I would have said y'all calling a bad foul, he wouldn't have given me a tech. They're just sensitive and they're terrible. They penalized me and Julius Randle for being stronger than our opponents every night. Don't get no calls. So yeah, that's how I feel about the officials every game we play. Close quote. And good for him for speaking up. And again, I can't play the audio. I do have the audio feed, but I can't play it because there's too many bad words in it. But I'm sure you understand. This guy is completely frustrated, and this has been going on for a long time, folks. Long time. I'm going to pick up on that after this. Anyway, Sean Wright, Sean Corbin, and Simone Jelks made up the officiating crew for that game. In fact, Edwards only attempted 4 free throws in the game, making 3, which likely motivated his tirade. And of course, the T-Wolves had 25 foul shots to the Warriors' 23, so there wasn't significant disparity between the two teams. But what wasn't getting called, in Edwards' view, was clearly an issue, and he was also whistled for personal fouls in the game. Now, the fine issued to Edwards is the second from the NBA in 2 weeks. He was also fined $25,000 for using profane language, though not in criticizing officials, but praising his team. Imagine that. Defense. His teammates' defense following a game on December 8th, also against Curry and the Golden State Warriors. Why is that? We'll get to that in a minute. Edwards has been fined by the league 3 times in the past 5 weeks for $135,000. In fact, back on November 17th, the former number 1 overall pick was docked $35,000 for giving a middle finger to a fan in Sacramento. And what provokes Edwards' gestures wasn't reported, but he was apparently motivated by Minnesota's assistant coach, Corliss Williamson, saying he'd been playing soft. No profane language or anger towards the officials was involved in the incident. So the Timberwolves began a 3-game road trip, and it was against the Atlanta Hawks, and before Christmas Day, of course, matchup with Dallas Mavericks, and the trip ends, of course, against the Houston Rockets. But I want to get back to this thing, because a lot of players, they feel that they can't say anything. A lot of coaches feel they can't say anything. Now, I remember having Tim Donaghy on the show, and Tim Donaghy he went to prison for, I think, 13 or 14 months for fixing NBA games. And, Tim was a great guest on the show, very forthcoming. And if you listen to that show, Tim singled out somebody else in there that was involved in the gambling thing. But what he didn't do is he didn't call him out by name. And he had said that he had some help with this. And ultimately, it's as you go up the food chain, people don't want to be singled out. Now, the NBA, just like the NFL and the other sports, whatnot, look, these games, in my opinion, are fixed. Period. Money, 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 money.
Show me the money!
And I'll show you a victory. And in fact, we had somebody on this program, I'm not going to tell you which one, you're going to have to listen to over 2,100 shows to figure out which one it was. We had somebody that won a championship, and he said that a lot of the guys, they go in and they go work for the boys when they're done playing so their careers can go on. When I say work for the boys, I'm talking about the boys back in the day that ran Vegas out in the open. Now it just seems like they're running everything behind the scenes. My point is this. A lot of players want to say stuff. The officials, in certain cases, want to say stuff because they're told to do whatever as I see it. I can't say for sure because, of course, we don't want to do that. But it sure seems remarkably feasible that not only are the games fixed, but money tells the story. When you look at the betting lines, look, Anthony Edwards is a victim of bad officiating. And the bad officiating, remember, the officials are the cheapest people on the floor. It's hard to fix a player, but it's a hell of a lot easier to fix an official, as I see it. Financially speaking, they're the cheapest people on the floor. Instead of the guys that are making tens and tens of millions of dollars a year, well, the officials don't make hardly anything. So it would appear to me that they would be the easiest to be compromised. Not saying that they are, but it sure seems that way to me, and I'm not the only one. Look at the betting audience out there. How convenient is it that the prognosticators are literally a half a point off or whatever it is almost every game? How does that work? Oh, that's right, by a call here, a ticky-tack call there, or whatever. Now, in the case of Anthony Edwards, Anthony's team lost by 10 points, but as the calls are made, or not made, I should say, as the referees seem to swallow their whistles, it seems like the spread gets a little bit bigger and bigger so they could cover the line being the money. Because remember, it's not necessarily what's going on the court. The money knows all. Now, as a prognosticator myself, I follow the money. I follow the whales in the casino. I follow the money movement. I don't care about the injury report. I don't care where they're playing, who's doing whose wife, whatever. I don't care about any of that stuff. The only thing that matters is the opening line, where it closes, and everything that happens with the money movement in between. Who's moving it? At what casinos are they being moved? And is it only online or is it in person? Because I worry about the ones that are being moved in person. Those are the ones that matter. Anyway, folks, we're going to be back here with a little bit more of chaos and controversy here on the Sports Circus. Don't go anywhere. Lots more to come.
Attention business owners, you and your customers are listening to this right now. Face it, every business needs customers, even yours. The Sports Circus is a primetime nationally syndicated program that's carried on ABC, NBC, CNBC, and Westwood One News affiliates, plus CBS, Fox, and NBC sports affiliates across North America, with coverage from Hawaii to New York. Also, the Sports Circus is available to the 180 million subscribers on iHeartRadio, and the Sports Circus gets about 4 million website visitors per month, which could click through your website and bring sales. The Sports Circus provides great content featuring celebrity guests from sports and entertainment to our audience every weekday, which your company could greatly benefit from by increasing your visibility, foot traffic, eyeballs to your website, and calls from potential customers. Call us right now at
714-948-0100. Again, 714-948-0100.
Or email us at info@thesportscircus.com. That's info@thesportscircus.com. Drive your sales today by advertising with the Sports Circus.
Could you use a little extra money right now? If you'd like to borrow up to $100,000 and get pre-approved in minutes, call the number we'll give you at the end of this commercial. Our lending partners have already loaned millions of dollars to individuals just like you, and we're ready to lend you up to $100,000 if you qualify. Even if your credit is not perfect, you could use the money to pay off high-interest credit cards, for home renovations, or consolidate existing debt. You can get flexible, easy-to-pay terms. The consultation to find out if you qualify is free. To find out if you qualify for our special financing program, call this toll-free number 24 hours a day. 800-335-1376. 800-335-1376. 800-335-1376. That's 800-335-1376. Important terms and conditions apply. Not all applicants will qualify. Loan amount, annual percentage rate, and term will vary depending on creditworthiness. Applying does not guarantee approval. Account approval is subject to verification and confirmation of your credit history and acceptance by a lender. If you choose to apply for a loan through us, a consumer report will be obtained to evaluate your creditworthiness in connection with your application for credit.
That's the sound of sizzling, dry-aged USDA prime Wagyu and Angus steaks from UpperCutChops.com. Their best-in-class filet mignons, New York steaks, and the king of all steaks, the tomahawk and cowboy cut ribeyes are the best in the business. Even their prime Wagyu burgers will likely be the best you've ever had. Browse the full selection of steaks and chops at UpperCutChops.com from the comfort of your home or on your mobile device. UpperCutChops.com delivers all-natural, dry-aged USDA prime Wagyu and Angus steaks and chops directly to your door, without the hassle of going to the grocery store and fight crowds to pick from a small selection of average and best meats with injected steroids, fillers, and coloring added to look good. Find out what's for dinner at UpperCutChops.com or call
714-948-0100. 714-948-0100. Again, 714-948-0100.
or make your selection directly at UpperCutChops.com.
Welcome back to the Sports Circus. I'm Roy Firestone. Now it's time to throw it back to Sal.
Thank you, Roy, and welcome back to the Sports Circus. I'm your ringmaster, Sal, live from Las Vegas in the AMP TV studio, AAMP Television. This segment brought to you in part by our friends over at the College of Southern Nevada Athletics. Check them out at csncoyotes.com for upcoming games and events. That's csncoyotes.com for the College of Southern Nevada Athletics. All right. Nice round of applause for them. As soon as it pops up here, there it goes. Hey, listen, it's live, folks. We don't fix nothing in the mix. It is what it is. All right, big welcome in everybody listening in on our radio affiliates. Hello to our friends over in Atlanta on WDJY. Thanks for waking up with us. And a big hello to our friends in Auburn, Alabama, home of the Atlanta Braves, WAUD 1230 on the AM dial. Big hello to our friends, of course, also in Honolulu at CBS Sports 1500 KHKA. That's home of the 49ers, the New York Yankees, and the Alabama Crimson Tide. And a hello to all of our friends on all of our affiliates, independents from coast to coast. There's about 210 of those, literally all over the place. And, of course, everybody watching on select markets on Cox, Comcast, Spectrum, Frontier, Oceanic, Time Warner, Spectrum, and WOW Cable TV, and Hotel TV in over 500,000 rooms. Plus, hello to our friends on Chicago Food Favorites on Facebook. All right. Let's stick with the NBA real quick here. Well, the NBA is really reeling. I mean, guys like Anthony Edwards makes it a very, I guess, it's guys like him that make it interesting, and Giannis Antetokounmpo and a couple of other guys that make the league sort of interesting, but the league has lost a lot of his personality. I love the fire in the belly of Anthony Edwards, and I like him even more now because the way he's popping off and really speaking his mind, because a lot of guys just don't do that. And then you have divisive players. In my opinion, LeBron James is not good for the league. I don't care. Yeah, he's a really good player. He's not the best player that's ever lived. That's for damn sure. But he's a good player, but he seems to be divisive with his team. And I don't seem to like the chemistry that he brings to the NBA. And yeah, he's won a couple of titles, so be it. But he's also lost a bunch of them too. And people say, well, he's better than Michael Jordan. Not even close. Mike got there 6 times. He won 6 times. Mike never even saw a Game 7. No, that's how good he was. And Mike was the best player on the offensive side and the defensive side in the same year, for example. Who else does that? Michael Jordan does that. End of discussion. But, we also think of some of the things that happen in the league, and you scratch your head and say, well, wait, did this happen in this previous era? I don't know. Did we see this kind of thing? Oh, and by the way, in case you're wondering, back to that Michael Jordan thing real quick. Michael Jordan really only played 11 seasons with the Bulls. Imagine this. He broke his foot in 1985-86. He didn't play in 1993-94 and only played 17 in the 1994 and 95 season. Imagine this. So in 11 full seasons, Michael Jordan managed to grab 9 all-defensive first teams, 10 scoring titles, 5 MVPs, oh, and that's right, 6 rings. That's right. I'm going to let that applause go for just a minute because that's how good this guy was at the game. And it was a game that was heavily defensively played. It's a very different game back then as to what you see in today's game. And look, I'm not trying to take anything away from LeBron James. I'm just saying this is an apple and an orange. And I mean an apple and an orange. Really. So, it's the same comparison. People say, well, how about Babe Ruth and Barry Bonds? We can go through that over and over. And you know what? Just because I said it, let's go through it. The WAR, wins against replacement. Barry Bonds, 162.8, a crazy number. You want to hear a crazier number? Babe Ruth, 182.6. That's how good that dude was. 20 more runs in replacement. That's what it would take. Total games, Barry Bonds played about 403 games more than Babe Ruth. Plate appearances, Barry Bonds had 2,000 more plate appearances, actually 1,980 and 79 more plate, no, 81 more appearances, whatever. And Barry Bonds only had 100 more hits than Babe Ruth. Barry Bonds, with his cheating, 762 home runs with 2,000 more bats. Babe Ruth had 714 home runs. RBIs, mind you, Babe Ruth played in 2,000. He had 2,000 less appearances, 400 odd games. He still had more RBIs, 2214 to Barry Bonds' 1996. Batting average, Babe Ruth, lifetime batting average, 342 to Barry Bonds, 298. OPB, that's right, on base percentage. And it was Babe Ruth, 474 to Barry Bonds, 444. Slugging percentage, 690 for Babe Ruth to Barry Bonds' 607. OPS, a 1.164, 1164 to 1051. That is significant. OPS plus, again, Babe Ruth, 206 to 182. Oh, and by the way, how about these awards in Hall of Fame and all this other fun stuff? How about Babe Ruth in the Hall of Fame? How about Babe Ruth with 7 World Series championships? They're both All-Stars, and Bonds got all the MVPs. Batting titles, Barry had one more batting title than Babe Ruth. Earned run average title went to Babe Ruth. That's right, it's a pitcher. Never mind all his pitching stats. Never mind the gold gloves and silver sluggers that Barry had. But Babe Ruth is, or actually Michael Jordan is the Babe Ruth of baseball. So you can cut it up however you want. But thinking about basketball again, going back to that, I'm sorry I had to digress a little bit just because when you think about what has happened in the NBA and you say, where did the league go? I think the league went south with the more of this one-and-done player because they've lost the basketball IQ. They've lost the smart players, and it's either a slam dunk or a three-point shot. That's it. What about basketball before there was even a three-point line? What about guys like Pistol Pete Maravich? Remember, Pete Maravich was the inspiration for Magic Johnson, in case you didn't know that. Magic took a lot of Pete Maravich's moves. But you look at this, now they have to have this in-bracket or in-season tournament and all this other crap. Seems like everybody makes the playoffs. And you say, well, hey, let's take a look at the Eastern Conference, for example. And you've got a couple of good teams, and then you've got 3 good teams that are above 500, and everybody else, we'll say 4 teams, and everybody else stinks. So Boston and New York are above 500 by a fair amount, and Cleveland, of course, Cleveland, I guess, being essentially the best team in basketball right now, took them a while to get back there. But then you look at the balance of the Eastern Conference, and it's garbage for the most part. We'll throw Orlando on the good side, too. And they've got some good players there. So looking at the Western Conference, it's a little bit more balanced, right? So the Clippers and the Lakers and the Warriors are all kind of within a couple of games of each other. The Rockets are pretty good. Oklahoma City is the best in the West, just like Cleveland is, and they're a game behind Cleveland overall. But there's no real sex appeal. You've got to go after certain players, and that's how you find the better teams at this point, and actually the better action. So Anthony Edwards is one of those guys, and he's an electric player, one of those guys you want to watch because he makes so much happen on the basketball court, but it's like he's being held up and he can't really be himself. And this is the problem because money is involved at every level. And yeah, he was the first overall pick, a handful of years ago. But this kid's legit. He is absolutely legit. And then when you look back at guys like Zion Williamson from my Duke University Blue Devils, Zion can't seem to stay healthy, and his team, think about this, 5-6 years into it, at 5-25, this guy's supposed to be in the prime of his career right now. And you look at the New Orleans Pelicans, and you ask yourself, hey, look, these guys, first of all, you say they're 29th in field goal percentage, 23rd or 25th in three-pointers, 21st in points scored, and 14th in rebounds. And you say, well, okay, well, let's take a look at these guys and let's see really what they've done. Or should we not? Because then you ask, why are we even looking at it? Because they're not very good. But remember, they're supposed to be good. They were supposed to be good at this juncture in the grand scheme of things. And then you're like, well, geez, they've won 5 out of 30 games. But why is that? Why have they only won 5 out of 30 games? I mean, this is a bad basketball team. Really. Now, here it is. Think about it. Zion Williamson, he is on the rack again. This guy is constantly on the injured list, seemingly. This time it's a hamstring. Alvarado with a hamstring. And then you've got Brandon Ingram with an ankle. It's always something. There's always an excuse. And look at the money they paid Zion Williamson. And you say, well, why do we have such bad basketball being played? And frankly, it's a little bit disheartening. You think of guys like Antetokounmpo, he's averaging 32 points a game, almost 33 points a game. Same thing with Jokic at about 31. Lonzo Ball at 30. So he's actually doing something. And Doncic at about 29. Rebounding, Karl Anthony Towns at 14. Sabonis with 13. Jokic again. On offense, in scoring, and Jokic for rebounds. I mean, the guy is right there, one of the better players. Then you look at defense with Wemby at 3.8 blocks per game. Pretty damn good, right? And then you have all those miscellaneous stats. But you ask yourself, what are we doing here in the NBA? Team leaders in offense. And it's Memphis, who's not the best team in basketball. Right now, Cleveland is. And Cleveland is leading the pack, or they're second anyway, in total offense, but they're nowhere to be found on defense. So you don't see a team that is number one or in the top 5 in offense and defense in the entire league. And this is what's wrong with the NBA. Back here in a few minutes, we're going to shift out of that and go into something else. Don't go anywhere. Lots more to come. I'm your ringmaster Sal of the Sports Circus, a primetime, nationally syndicated television, radio, sports, and entertainment show. The Sports Circus covers topics others are too scared to talk about. There's no other primetime show like it out here that'll punch you in the face and you'll beg for more. Join me, Hall of Famers, world champions, and all-star celebrity guests for chaos and controversy here on Libsyn and all podcast platforms, plus thesportscircus.com. Remember, folks, it's a circus and we prove it every day.
Hello Americans, it's Uncle Sam here. If you owe $10,000 or more in back taxes to the IRS or state, don't worry. I've got important news that may help you negotiate a lower tax bill. In today's economy, the IRS has released a variety of new rules and is offering more flexible terms to help Americans looking to settle their IRS debt. If you apply today, we may be able to lift your wage garnishments and release a freeze on your bank assets or business. Our team of tax professionals can resolve your case and stop collection actions against you. Even if you've been audited or haven't filed a return in years, they can help. Call right now and find out if you qualify to settle your IRS debt for far less than what you owe. Pick up your phone right now and call us for a free $500 IRS tax review. Don't wait. Here's the number.
Call right now. 800-950-2049. 800-950-2049. 800-950-2049. For the last time, that's 800-950-2049.
Do a search on how to get out of credit card debt, and you'll find everything from crazy promises to ways you can try to do it yourself. Many of those ideas just don't work, and they leave you broker than you were. Here's some advice. Call our debt helpline. In a quick and free 5-minute conversation, our experts will listen to you and learn about how much credit card debt you have, what your goals are, and then show you the right solution to help you get out of credit card debt with one new simple, affordable payment. The credit card companies make available special programs to help if you're struggling. All it takes for you to finally get out of credit card debt is one quick, free phone call. So please call right now.
800-948-6817. 800-948-6817. 800-948-6817. That's 800-948-6817. Paid for by the Debt Helpline.
That's ridiculous.
Quiet, numbskulls, I'm broadcasting. Hey everyone, Dave Jackson here, ESPN rules analyst on ESPN Hockey, and you're listening to the Sports Circus.
Welcome back to the Sports Circus. I'm your ringmaster Sal, live from Las Vegas in the AMP TV studio, AAMP Television. This segment brought to you in part by our friends over at Al's Number One Italian Beef. Check them out at 1079 West Taylor Street in Chicago's Little Italy. That's Al's Number One Italian Beef, the creators of the Italian beef sandwich. They've been open since 1938. Check them out at alsbeef.com. If you can't get over to the restaurant, alsbeef.com. Also available on Goldbelly. And just type in Al's Beef and tell them the circus sent you. All right. And welcome in everybody on Chicago Food Favorites on Facebook, and plus everybody on radio and TV. Thanks for joining us as well on Pick Your Favorite Station, whether it's a television network affiliate, radio network affiliate, or it could actually be an independent, over 210 of those. Nonetheless, make sure that you check out thesportscircus.com for upcoming guests, our prior guests as well, and our store. Lots of great items there available for last-minute shopping. Check out thesportscircus.com. Hit store for your hats, hoodies, T-shirts, sweatpants, fleece coats, travel mugs, you name it. Shameless plug, of course, for the Sports Circus. All right, enough of that. How about a little college football here and junior college players? Now, we don't really talk much about this, but the NCAA agreed to a waiver for JUCO players after Diego Pavia lawsuit injunction actually occurred. How about this one? Some junior college athletes will see their careers extended, at least for now. An NCAA Division I board of directors composed of university presidents agreed to a waiver for JUCO players that grant them an additional year of eligibility if they are in a similar situation as Vanderbilt quarterback Diego Pavia. And Pavia, of course, is suing the NCAA over its eligibility standards, arguing that his junior college playing season should not count as part of his 4 seasons of NCAA eligibility. And I'm going to tell you right now, I think that's a bunch of BS. And I'll get to that in a minute. Let me finish with this first. The NCAA D1 board's decision came 5 days after a Tennessee federal court granted Pavia an injunction that prohibits the association from counting his junior college seasons, granting him an additional year of eligibility. The court ruling only applied to Pavia. However, the NCAA, in an effort to keep fairness amongst its competitive schools, granted additional eligibility to all similar positioned athletes, according to a memo sent to schools. So athletes like Pavia, who were expected to use their final year of eligibility this academic year, are now eligible for next season. So Pavia played 2 seasons of JUCO ball and 3 seasons of Division I, one of those being the COVID red shirt season, the pandemic season. Now, because of the court ruling, he'll receive a 6th season of NCAA eligibility. As a matter of fact, the NCAA memo reads, quote, the NCAA Division I Board of Directors granted a waiver to permit student athletes who attended and competed at a non-NCAA school for 1 or more years to remain eligible and compete in the 25 and 26 season. So if those student athletes would have otherwise used their final season of competition during the 24-5 academic year and met all eligibility requirements, all the other ones, for example, progress towards a degree, 5-year period eligibility, close quote. So we're seeing an accommodation, and I'm going to get to why I'm against this. The NCAA also plans to file an appeal to the court ruling in the Pavia lawsuit, and it announced recently, in perhaps more important news, the NCAA could be barreling towards a more significant change to its eligibility rules, something the association suggested its memos to the schools just recently. In fact, the NCAA's memos remind schools that the Division I Council is exploring a comprehensive review of eligibility rules to create a framework that will be sustainable and can withstand scrutiny, according to them, they say. Nonetheless, there is a movement from college leaders to adjust the eligibility rule in a way that grants athletes 5 playing seasons in a 5-year time span. Currently, NCAA rules permit athletes 4 playing seasons over a 5-year stretch, often referred to as the 5-year eligibility clock. So, for now, the only certain sport grants athletes the ability to play in multiple contests still retain for years of eligibility. So it's football. So, for instance, football players can recoup a season of eligibility with a red shirt if they play in fewer than 4 games during a season. And the NCAA's Board of Ruling opened the door for hundreds, if not thousands, of former junior college athletes to have their careers extended if they so choose. As the NCAA suggested in a statement on the injunction, the consequences of such will be felt by high school players who projected roster spots are no longer becoming free. And decision comes amid an unstable and somewhat chaotic time. As we all know, schools are scrambling to adhere to new rules imposed as part of the NCAA's landmark settlement of the House Antitrust case, including stricter limitations on the size of rosters. More than 4,000 roster spots are expected to be cut among the power leagues alone. The association said in a statement recently, quote, altering the enforcement of the rules overwhelmingly supports by the NCAA member schools, making a shift environmentally even more unsettled, close quote. So the court ruling last week is the 3rd major court decision in the last year to bar the association from enforcing a rule. A West Virginia court made it possible for athletes who are transferring a second time or more to play immediately. And of course, a ruling in a Tennessee federal court made mostly moot the NCAA's interim NIL policy, permitting boosters and booster-led collectives to negotiate with athletes before they enroll. How ridiculous. Now back to this Pavia thing. So at the heart of the Pavia argument is the fact that he and other athletes are now eligible to receive compensation from boosters and soon from schools through the House Settlement Revenue Sharing provision. Give me a damn break. It's all about what?
Show me the money!
Yeah, and he stands to earn at least $1 million next year in college. He says in the filing. Imagine that. So, it's money he'd otherwise miss out on if he had run out of eligibility. So starting in July, schools are permitted to directly share revenues with athletes. And of course, it paves the way for millions of dollars, as much as $20.5 million annually per school, to be shared with athletes in a giant step as major college sports move from an amateur model to a professional concept. This is ridiculous. Now, first of all, I'm going to get back to this eligibility thing. So I have a problem with this. I think back to when I was playing. The eligibility clock is a real problem because I think about, as myself, I had a 4-year ride to go to actually it was the number 1 baseball program in the country at the time. Got injured in a car wreck. I couldn't play. So I went to junior college so I could basically chew up a little bit of time, start working towards a degree. And then when I was healed up, I found out that I was using up my eligibility clock just by attending college in the first place. So I lost 2 years of eligibility right out the gate. And that was just due to an injury. I wasn't even playing. It's because I was actually physically attending college. Imagine that. Now these kids get to go for 5-6 years. Now they get paid millions of dollars to do what? To play an amateur sport, which by definition, if you're paid to do something, you're no longer an amateur. You're a hired gun, or you're a professional. So therefore, the notion of amateur sports is non-existent. It's just, I guess, a moniker at this point. But the reality is, if you're paid to play, you are no longer an amateur. So now this guy gets to go an extra year along with all these other JUCO players. And look, not to take away from them, but the collectives and this booster money and all this BS, that's what this is about. Money is wrecking sports. It's wrecking high school football, baseball, basketball, whatever. It's wrecking college football, baseball, basketball, and even hockey. And it's wrecking professional football, baseball, basketball, and hockey. And it's all predicated on these boosters. And this is the reason it was illegal in the first place. That's why schools like SMU got the death penalty. They had their programs actually removed for interference of college money being paid by boosters. And, of course, schools like Texas and Notre Dame, they never seem to get in trouble for this. I don't understand it. Alabama never seemed to get in trouble for it either. Ohio State never got in trouble for it either. Why is that? Oh, that's right, because there's too much damn money flowing, and that's why they turn a blind eye. How about John Wooden and company back in the day? I know two players that said, they told me personally they got paid by John Wooden and his people back in the 1960s and 70s to play basketball at UCLA. The payoffs were going back then. It was started on the books, or better yet, off the books, on record by John Wooden and his people, and it's just gotten worse and worse and worse. So money is wrecking everything. And let's face it, folks, these are not the college sports that we knew growing up. This is not the system we knew growing up. They say, well, parity and the transfer portal and all this other crap. Folks, it's all based on money, and it's an abomination. Back here with a few minutes in the Sports Circus. We're going to talk baseball when we come back.
Can your IRA stand up to the next financial crisis that our top economists are saying is at our doorsteps? By allocating a percentage of your IRA into physical gold and silver with a tax-free rollover, you can diversify and safeguard your holdings from turbulent markets and economic downturns by putting your IRA back on the gold standard. Find out how to safeguard your assets with a tax-free rollover with a Genesis Gold IRA, the only IRA that can hold physical precious metals. Call now for your free gold and silver report. Protect your IRA today with one simple phone call and learn how to qualify for up to $10,000 in free silver. Call Genesis Gold Group, empowering faith-driven stewardship. 800-932-5517. 800-932-5517. 800-932-5517. That's 800-932-5517.
If you served in the Marine Corps, by now you know about the contaminated water problem at Camp Lejeune. If you were stationed or worked at Camp Lejeune from 1953 to 1987, you probably have a lot of questions. We have some answers. You could be entitled to compensation. Billions of dollars are being allocated to pay for damages to anyone stationed at Camp Lejeune during that time. Unfortunately, it appears that officials may have known the contaminated water problem existed and did little to protect their men. The Semper Fi code was not honored. If you or someone in your family has developed a serious illness, including various forms of cancer, call this Camp Lejeune legal support line right now. You can't turn back the clock and change what happened, but you can certainly call right now and learn your rights as a Marine. Here's the number.
Call 800-335-7196. 800-335-7196. That's 800-335-7196.
Do a search on how to get out of credit card debt, and you'll find everything from crazy promises to ways you can try to do it yourself. Many of those ideas just don't work, and they leave you broker than you were. Here's some advice. Call our debt helpline. In a quick and free 5-minute conversation, our experts will listen to you and learn about how much credit card debt you have, what your goals are, and then show you the right solution to help you get out of credit card debt with one new simple, affordable payment. The credit card companies make available special programs to help if you're struggling. All it takes for you to finally get out of credit card debt is one quick, free phone call. So please call right now.
800-948-6817. 800-948-6817. 800-948-6817. That's 800-948-6817. Paid for by the Debt Helpline.
everybody. This is Brian Urlacher. Welcome back to the Sports Circus.
Welcome back to the Sports Circus. I'm your ringmaster, Sal, live from Las Vegas in the AMP TV studio, AAMP Television. Folks, make sure you check out thesportscircus.com for upcoming guests, our prior guests, recorded shows, which can be found on all podcast platforms, Apple, Amazon, Audible, Spotify, Pandora, iHeartRadio, etc., and so forth. Also, make sure you check out the partners page at thesportscircus.com. Lots of great partners over there. Lots of great books to read, too, including our friends Zach Manassian, who wrote a book called Lasorda University. It's about the 1968 Ogden Dodgers with Tommy Lasorda. Boy, that was a fun book to read. It's an easy read. Lots of great books there. One by Robert F. Kennedy Jr., another one by Pat Williams, Orlando Magic, etc., and so forth. Lots of great books over there. Make sure you check that out at thesportscircus.com under partners. Lots of good ones over there. All right, welcome back to everybody. I'm going to shift into baseball real quick. And, you know, Ricky Henderson was one of those guys that, boy, you know, you didn't want to play against him. You wanted him on your team. You couldn't stand him if he was on the other team. And Ricky was a fun guy, but also arguably the greatest leadoff man in the history of Major League Baseball. Ricky recently passed away, and CBS put a very nice little blurb together on him, and we're going to go ahead and read this as CBS Sports has written it. And they said, upon hearing of the death of all-time great Ricky Henderson, actually, let's strike that, it was written by a guy by the name of Matt Snyder. We want to make sure we give him the credit. Matt Snyder from CBS said, upon hearing of the death of all-time great Ricky Henderson, I first got a little pedantic with myself. The overuse of the word unique had become a bit of a pet peeve here. Every single person, by definition of the word, is unique. There are no copies of us, and we're all one of a kind. After all, I hear people in sports media always say something like, oh, it's very unique. Or something, and it nearly takes me, and it makes me want to scream every time I hear it. You're either one of a kind or you're not. So there's no varying. But with Ricky Henderson, though, I'm ready to be a hypocrite and throw my issue out the proverbial window. He was a special kind of unique, and baseball is never going to see anything like him ever again. It wasn't just how good he was, though that was a major component. There are plenty of mind-blowing stats posted by Ricky Henderson, and he led the league in steals 12 times, including when he was 39 years of age. He led the league in runs 5 times. He got on base more times than all but 3 players in the history of Major League Baseball. He scored more runs and stole more bases than anyone ever. Ricky Henderson was, without a doubt, the single greatest leadoff man in baseball history. It wasn't just that he was so good at getting on base and stealing bases and scoring runs. He was a power threat as well. And as a table setter, generally foreign concept that we never really saw that in his era. Now, he squatted down so low. His strike zone, I'm adding this just myself, his strike zone was so small. It was so hard to strike this guy out. This guy led the league. He led the world in unintentional walks. Yeah, that's the guy. So, I mean, not only could he hit for power, he can hit for average. He hit about 280 in his career, but he had a whole bunch of leadoff home runs. I think 81, if I'm not mistaken. But this guy was dangerous. I mean, seriously. He just was a menace at the plate. And again, like I said, he drew more walks than anyone not named Barry Bonds, because Barry had all the intentional walks. Nonetheless, more than any of that, though, Ricky had a swag about him, just something that other people didn't have. In fact, back before home run celebrations were ubiquitous, all right, we're going to use that word out there, he would pick at his jersey while rounding the bases in style. It's just kind of what he did. It was kind of like the cool that he did just kind of oozed out of him. And there was just not one in the ballpark. I mean, look, this guy homered to set the all-time record for runs scored, and fittingly, he slid into home plate on top of it just because he could. Look, personality, his was an absolute legendary one. And sure, there are mainstream stories on it, whatever. And who could forget when he said, "Today I am the greatest of all time," while standing right next to Lou Brock, having just broken Lou Brock's stolen base record. Of course, we've all heard the John Olerud tale, which isn't really true, but we'll get to that in a minute anyway, a million times. But in diving into Howard Bryant's excellent book, Ricky, you'll find some other gems, such as in 1987, Ricky Henderson was injured and only played 95 games. Harold Reynolds led the league, the American League, with 60 stolen bases. Ricky called him and didn't even introduce himself. He simply said, 60 bases? Man, Ricky got 60 by the All-Star break and hung the phone up without extending the call. That's good stuff. In 1994, he reached base against the Angels. And first baseman J.T. Snow said that after the pitcher threw the ball the first twice, Henderson told him, "You could tell him he don't got to throw over here again today. I'm not running today. Ricky's tired." He doubled and homered his next two at-bats, but later reached first again and dealt with a few more throws to first. But Ricky then implored Snow, "Man, you better go tell him he doesn't need to throw over here today. Ricky tired. Ricky ain't running today." That's pretty funny. That's on page 298 of that book. How about Red Sox first baseman Mo Vaughn? I always call him Mo Money. Mo Vaughn told a story on the other end. After two throws to first, Ricky would say, "Dog, I got to go. He's tiring me out throwing over here so much," and then just stole second with relative ease. Another time he reached first, and Vaughn says, "You going?" He goes, "You know I am." And at first pitch, he took second base. Now, according to A's catcher Terry Steinbach, one time Ricky didn't stretch or do anything at all in warm-ups. Right before the national anthem, he was in the clubhouse saying, "Ricky going to have a great day," over and over. And he hit a leadoff home run. Now, of course, the legendary statement, of course, this one goes back to the John Olerud story. It's a pretty good one. And Olerud wore a helmet while playing first base due to having surgery for his brain aneurysm in college. And Olerud and Henderson played together in Toronto, New York, and Seattle. And the story goes that Ricky met Olerud in Seattle and talked about how he played with a guy in New York who also wore a helmet at first base. And the story, according to Olerud, was fictitious instead of the brainchild of Robin Ventura with the Mets when he grew up, and a group set around coming up with a story that could have happened. However, the wrinkle that makes the story amazing is now that Olerud said Ricky would tell people it was true, seeming to indicate he liked the story. And so that's how influential he was. By 2001, when the legend of Ricky Henderson, not knowing any of his teammates, had grown to laughable lengths, Padres teammate Phil Nevin told Ricky he'd give him $100 each teammate on the bus that he could name. And Ricky's reply, "Bleep you, Phil," close quote. That's fun stuff. For some of this, look, it paints a picture that Henderson was a bit of a circus act. Of course, being the sports circus, it's rather fitting. But that isn't really the truth. I mean, look, he was a very serious player, and he took himself seriously when he needed to. And his Hall of Fame speech is a good example of that. Notice that he closes with, quote, "Today I'm very, very humble," close quotes. As play on this, quote, "greatest of all time," quote, speech. Also, his talking in the third person was exaggerated by Dave Parker and told Bryant, in fact, it was done to get laughs out of the people. And hey, it worked. Those people and those stories, I mean, look, everybody laughed and they were funny. It's one of the main reasons that Ricky was one of the best players, and he was a favorite amongst a lot of people in many different ways. And what I could tell you, just without going against all this other stuff, look, Ricky, in case you don't know, if you look at what this guy did, he had 3,081 games, 10,961 at-bats, 2,295 runs, 3,000, yes, he had 3,000 hits, 3,055 hits, 510 doubles, 66 triples, 297 home runs, leadoff home runs largely. Total bases, 4,588, 1,115 RBIs, 1,406 stolen bases, caught 335 times, 2,190 walks, hit 279, on-base percentage 401, slugging percentage 419, on-base OPS 820, fielding percentage of 797. Boy, that's pretty good stuff. And when you look back at some of his records, most stolen bases, number one. Most times caught stealing. Yes, he was right there, number one. Most runs scored, number one. Most games led off with a home run, 81, number one. Most unintentional walks, number one. Most consecutive seasons, one or more home run, 25. Most seasons leading the league in stolen bases, 12. Most stolen bases, 130 in one season. That's right, most stolen bases in a single postseason, 8 in the 89 ALCS when he was with the Oakland A's. Most stolen bases in a single postseason, 11. Mind you, he's a 10-time All-Star. He was a ALCS MVP, American League Gold Glove Award winner, American League Hits Champion, American League MVP, yes, he won one of those, American League Silver Slugger, 3 of those, American League Stolen Bases Champion, 12 of those, American League Walks Leader 4 times, Major League On-Base Percentage Leader, Major League Runs Scoring Leader 5 times, Major League Stolen Bases Champion 6 times, TSN Comeback Player of the Year, and 2-time World Champion. That's Rickey Henderson, folks. And I'll tell you what, just a personal thing, and I can tell you this just from being out in the seats. When I was injured, I wasn't playing. And I remember this very clearly, being out in the left field seats when Rickey was playing for the Oakland A's. Being out in the left field seats, watching the game as a patron in Anaheim Stadium. And what Rickey would do when everybody would talk smack to him, Rickey would turn around in left field. He would put his glove up to hide his other hand. And so his left hand was his glove hand. And so his right hand, what he would do is he would hold the glove up to guard it from the cameras. And Rickey would turn around and flip everybody off that gave him crap in the left field seats. That's the guy that Rickey was. And you couldn't help but laughing because he was laughing at everybody else. Rickey was being paid to play the game that he loved, and he played into his 50s. But Rickey was that guy, and you had to love the moxie, the confidence. Man, this guy is the definition of baseball. And Rickey Henderson, the baseball world is going to miss you, but they will never, ever forget you. That's going to do it for the circus today. I'm your ringmaster, Sal, and we're going to see you in about 23 hours right here on your favorite station. Until then, so long, everyone.
Can your IRA stand up to the next financial crisis that our top economists are saying is at our doorsteps? By allocating a percentage of your IRA into physical gold and silver with a tax-free rollover, you can diversify and safeguard your holdings from turbulent markets and economic downturns by putting your IRA back on the gold standard. Find out how to safeguard your assets with a tax-free rollover with a Genesis Gold IRA, the only IRA that can hold physical precious metals. Call now for your free gold and silver report. Protect your IRA today with one simple phone call and learn how to qualify for up to $10,000 in free silver. Call Genesis Gold Group, empowering faith-driven stewardship. 800-932-5517. 800-932-5517. 800-932-5517. That's 800-932-5517.